I'm sitting across the table from a couple I barely know. They have a young child. They're trying to build an estate plan. They ask me a question I hear all the time. Should we get married? They're not asking lightly, and they're not asking about romance. They're asking because something feels uncertain. As we talk, I see it land on her face. She thinks of him as her husband, but legally he's not. And suddenly the question is not about love. It is about rights. What happens if something goes wrong? Who can step in? Who has legal authority? Who does the law recognize? I cannot tell this couple whether they should get married, but I can tell them what the law does if they do, and what it does not. Marriage legally is a structure. It has foundations, protective walls, basic utilities, built-in rights, built-in obligations, built-in standing. You can be deeply committed, share a child, buy a home, build a life that looks identical to your married neighbors, but the law does not award points for devotion. Marriage changes how two people are categorized. It changes how hospitals, banks, courts, and government agencies interact with them. And that difference usually shows up only when something goes wrong. Incapacity is the moment where love runs into bureaucracy. Picture a hospital room. One of you cannot speak, cannot consent, cannot explain what you want. In that moment, the question is not who loves this person. It is who has legal authority to act. A spouse is automatically entrusted with medical decisions, with access to information, with coordination of care. If you're not married, that automatic authority often does not exist, even if you have been together for years, even if you have children. Without formal documents, decision-making can fall to legally recognized family members. And if a parent disagrees, everything can slow down. I had a client whose unmarried partner was in a coma. He found himself battling her mother over medical decisions, not because anyone was cruel, but because the law did not recognize him as her decision maker. The answer is not guessing, it's choosing. A healthcare proxy, an advanced directive, naming the person you want to speak for you, and a backup. Because uncertainty is what creates conflict. Uncertainty is what creates delay. Now let us talk about children. One parent is suddenly gone or suddenly incapacitated. Who does the law recognize as having authority? Who can make decisions quickly? This is not theoretical. A non-legal parent may be forced to prove authority at school, in the hospital, or in court. Marriage can simplify parentage presumptions in many states. Unmarried families often need additional steps, especially for the non-birth parent. Unmarried couples do not get defaults. They have to build them. Now imagine this. It is Tuesday. Your phone buzzes with an unrecognized number. One of you is suddenly unable to manage money or unable to communicate clearly. The mortgage is still due. The kids still need to eat. Insurance premiums do not pause for emergencies. How do you keep the machine running? Financial institutions generally default to the spouse, although that's not automatic. If you are not married, that assumption often does not exist at all. You may be refused account access, refused information, unable to act at the moment action matters most. Without a valid, durable financial power of attorney, properly coordinated with how accounts are titled, you could be locked out. A power of attorney lets the right person pay bills, manage accounts, and keep life stable when stability matters most. And if that Tuesday emergency is fatal, who owns what? Intestacy laws generally treat a surviving spouse as an heir, often entitled to at least a portion of the estate. If you're not married, your partner is generally not an heir at all. Your child may inherit, or your blood relatives, depending on your state. Unmarried partners can inherit, but not by default. They can inherit only if the paperwork is done in advance and kept current. Wills, trusts, beneficiary designation, ownership titles. Different assets follow different rule books. One asset makes this real immediately. Let's talk for a minute about the family home. The question becomes very simple. Can I stay here? Not emotionally, but legally. I had a client sued by her stepson to force the sale of the house that she lived in. She contributed to expenses. She had a 3-year-old child with her now deceased partner. But the house was his. And when he died, his adult child had the legal right to force a sale. Nothing went wrong emotionally. Everything went wrong legally. If only one partner's name is on the deed, the other may have no ownership rights at all. Even when both names are on the property, the form of ownership can determine what happens next. Planning before something happens is what determines whether someone is protected or left scrambling. Here's the short version on taxes. Marriage changes default tax rules for moving assets between two adults. If you're unmarried and want similar flexibility, you need intentional planning. Retirement accounts are where intent most often gets defeated by paperwork. They're often the most valuable asset a person has, and they follow the beneficiary designation form. One outdated form can override everything. Many systems are built around one word: spouse. Employer health insurance, family and medical leave, Social Security survivor benefits. Some employers offer domestic partner benefits, some don't. Estate planning documents can reduce friction, but they cannot turn a partner into a spouse. For every system, that limitation matters because realistic planning beats helpful assumptions. Do not assume the first set of paperwork is the last either. A functional plan requires aligned documents, consistent beneficiary designations, correct titling of assets, and updates as life changes. This is not married good, unmarried bad. Marriage changes legal defaults. Estate planning lets unmarried couples build those defaults intentionally. I'm Jesse Bifulco, and this is LifeCast, the LifeCounsel podcast. Do not ask whether you should get married. Ask what legal structure matches the life you're living and the people you're protecting. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and have a plan. Thanks.